Chair recognizes the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Russell, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Congress has a chance this week to turn the president's pivot to Asia into a pivot to America. The question is, will we listen to the American people? Or will we double down on a watered-down policy that has divided both the Democratic and Republican sides of the aisle? To stop the TPP, we must hold firm. Republicans and Democrats all want trade barriers to be removed, but we are at a crossroads because both parties have voiced a lack of trust in the president's ability to be able to negotiate what is best for America. That is why we are still fighting to stop the Trade Promotional Authority, better known as Fast Track. Fast Track will not be the panacea of all ills. In fact, if granted, we could see President Obama move swiftly on the Trans-Pacific Partnership that will likely not deliver the goods and have harmful secondary effects in multiple areas. Dr. Erilyn Lukics from the University of Texas at El Paso makes this analysis, quote, "I think the consequences could be very dire. We already saw under NAFTA how so many jobs left the United States and also went from Mexico. Then we saw as well tens of thousands of low-income Mexican families being put out of work and losing their land, and we saw how that drove migration to the United States," end quote. The architects of the TPA in both Congress and the White House claim that Fast Track, with it, they can lower barriers on U.S. exports among the 11 other TPP nations in the negotiation, thus increasing jobs and wages. Now to the facts. We already have high-standard free trade agreements with 7 of those 11 other nations in the proposed Trans-Pacific Partnership. We are writing the rules in the Pacific. Let's write them some more with good bilateral agreements. If you don't believe me, then how about Simon Johnson, a former chief economist of the International Monetary Fund and a professor at MIT Sloan? Here is what he says about the myth of needing the TPA to lower tariffs among the proposed members of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Quote, "Almost all tariffs on trade among Canada, Mexico, and the United States are long gone. Under the Australia and Singapore free trade agreements, almost all tariffs on U.S. goods have been eliminated. Goods from the United States have entered Chile without tariffs since January 1st of this year. And most tariffs imposed by Peru have already been phased out. The TPP will amount to a free trade agreement with Brunei, with a population less than Omaha, Nebraska, and New Zealand, with a population less than Louisiana. Encouraging exports to these countries is surely desirable, but the economic impact on the United States is unlikely to be more than a rounding error. That leaves 3 larger countries where the issues are more complex: Japan, Malaysia, and Vietnam. And TPP will also confer special status on foreign investors, allowing them to sue for financial judgments against host country regulations. Creating a quasi-legal process outside the regular court system just for foreigners can go wrong in many ways," end quote. I would add from my own reading of the TPP, without divulging the details, concerns about private rights in disputes, the transnational panel empowered with a living agreement, even after the accord is signed, and possible exceptions granted to Brunei, whose legal system is not to the same standard as other nations. So one says, what solutions do you have? Well, here are a couple. First, listen to the American people. If the majority of Americans completely across the political spectrum have voiced concerns against TPA, then our actions this week will truly reflect if we are being representative of that voice. Second, the president must demonstrate he can lead on foreign policy. He has yet to do it. Granting Fast Track to negotiate with 40% of the world's economy should be based on how well he has handled foreign policy. Have we forgotten the handling of Syria, ISIS, Iraq, Crimea, Ukraine, and Iran? I can go on, but the question is, why are we? The president must show us some deeds, not words. He should start by negotiating a bilateral agreement with our ally, Japan. Intently focus there. Bring that to us, and we will likely approve it. Third, negotiate an interim agreement with China. We still have much to do with raising the standards bar on Chinese trade, but China lacks lawyers to fight these problems. Well, do we know how to make plenty of those? Negotiate a law school program all across our land's rich institutions to create Chinese attorneys to help fight these issues. As to goods, China is seeking oil, natural gas, coal, timber, aggregate, beef, and pork. We have an abundance of these. How about a trade agreement on these narrow products that will immediately benefit us all? It's not impossible. We have the resources. We have the technology. What we need are the guts to do it. A rekindling of the American spirit and the leadership to get it done. It starts by putting the brakes on fast track. We need the right track instead. I yield back my time.
Gentleman's time.